Okay, so what we thought we would do is that Chair General will have some opening remarks. Then we'll have our co-host, Ramon, briefly for the next speech. And then there's of course this since you are. Is that coincide with, no?
No, that's fine. I didn't know that it was a keynote. I thought it was just a.
We call it the keynotes because we have high keynotes. So it's just whatever you. Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah. Good. Thank you very much. And if you could please sit here, then just
Today. Very well. I went bird watching in the morning. Yeah, there's someone from the delegation who's an expert, not only an expert, but
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you had a good lunch. Thank you so much for being here. And I hope you're energized for a really exciting session, which we have called Scaling the Restoration of Degraded Freshwater Ecosystems and the Freshwater Challenge. I hope you're in the right session. We have an exquisite lineup of speakers and panelists. We're going to make this a very exciting and also in the second stage, an interactive session. So please think about the question you may be having for the panelists. And I wish you a very good hour. So it's my privilege here to, by the way, my name is Koenraad Krijger. I'm CEO of Wetlands International. I'll be moderating this session. And I'll be having the privilege to also announce the first speakers, which we have here, which are two keynotes, as we call them, which is going to be first going to be opened by Dr. Muzunda Mumba, all very known, the Secretary General of the Ramsar Convention, and Her Excellency Maisa Rojas Corredi, the Minister of Environment of Chile. And I'll be inviting also Mr. Jean-Hervier Mebet, the Director General of Aquatic Ecosystems, Ministry of Water and Forests of Gabon, later on. This session is co-hosted by Gabon and France and Wetlands International, and I hope you will get a better understanding of what we would like to achieve with the Freshwater Challenge. Just a very brief introduction. As you all know, freshwater ecosystems are among the most threatened ecosystems in the world. At the same time, they're vital for people, for nature, for climate. So people and societies and economies depend on freshwater ecosystems. So in this side event, what we'd like to do is to showcase a leadership, really. Leadership in conserving and restoring wetlands, freshwater wetlands, at the national level. There's a big emphasis on what we can do nationally, but also at the regional and the global level. And the Freshwater Challenge is instrumental in this, as this is a country-led initiative with, of course, support by different organizations, including the ones organizing it. We're also going to discuss and touch upon the importance of the draft resolution number 23.15, which, as you all know, is on the freshwater ecosystem restoration, crucially important in this Ramsar COP15. And it's very much like to align also with the UN Water Agenda, the Water Action Agenda, going to the UN Water Conference next year, December. So what we're demonstrating to you today, or actually better, the keynote speakers and the panelists are really exciting examples of leadership at the national, regional, and global level. And we'll see how countries approach this big challenge of conserving and restoring freshwater ecosystems. With further ado, it is my privilege to invite to the stage here Dr. Muzunda Mumba to give some opening remarks to us. Thank you very much.
Dank u wel, Konrad. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, colleagues, distinguished guests. I'm so excited to be here because in March of 2023, I had the honor of participating in the second UN Water Conference where the birth of this Freshwater Challenge actually happened. And what was really exciting moment was also the very fact that it took us 47 years to have a second UN Water Conference. But what was also very clear and evident in the conversations in New York under the margins of that very important UN meeting was the very importance of freshwater ecosystems. And I really want to applaud Gabon. I want to applaud Colombia, Ecuador, Mexico, Zambia, who have been really instrumental in making sure that this freshwater challenge actually gains momentum. Where are we at the moment? I think for me to just actually see how the pathway was very clear, and also thanks to colleagues at IUCN and the international organization partners, Wetlands International, etc., who really made sure that even as we went to COP28, there was a conversation on the water outcome, and freshwater challenge was really at the highest political agenda. I also really want to applaud the European Union and many other countries, and now we're at 50 countries joining this freshwater challenge. What does this mean for the Convention on Wetlands? We were at the table at the very beginning, and several of the countries that are involved in the freshwater challenge are contracting parties. And really, I must applaud Gabon again and France for co-hosting this really important event today, together with Wetlands International, because we cannot not have a conversation around these systems that are so critical, but also a link from source to sea. There are places in the world where rivers and wetlands don't get to the sea. And there are also places in the world where, because of restoration initiatives, rivers have gotten to the sea. What does that actually mean? That means that there are some elements of investment that is necessary. Colleagues, you have seen the Global Wetland Outlook 2025, which already speaks to the challenge experiencing between 1975 and 2025. And this is very conservative. We've lost wetlands to the scale of $5.1 trillion. It's a lot, and we're still losing some more, 3 times more than forest ecosystems. So what do we do differently? I think we also, and I'm so glad to see the Jeff in here and also other multilateral funding mechanisms present to start thinking through what other investment structural mechanisms should we have in place to really support the freshwater challenge and the issues related to investing in this process. And really, as the draft resolution speaks to that fact, under the leadership of Gabon, how do we make sure that we restore these vital ecosystems, our very lifelines on this planet in all these very diverse spaces? So I really want to thank you and really thank you for participating. Great to see such a full room. And I'm looking forward to the conversations and hearing how we go fast and furious together and make a change, because we need to see the change sooner than later. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for those greatly inspiring and encouraging words. Long way to go, but like I said, we have a exquisite lineup of examples that are really inspiring and country-led. We'll hear more about those. I'd very much like to, like I said, this session is co-hosted, and very much like to invite Mr. Jean Hervier from Gabon to, is he in the room? Sorry. I thought he was there. Here we go. I very much like to invite Mr. Jean Hervier to introduce our next keynote speaker. Mr. Hervé is a Director General of Aquatic Ecosystems of the Ministry of Water and Forest of Gabon. Please.
Alors, je vais parler en français. Les écosystèmes sont divers, les cultures aussi, les langues aussi. Apparemment, il n'y a pas de traduction. Il y en a. Alors, quelqu'un vous fera un résumé. Alors, très rapidement, merci de m'avoir invité ici. Je suis Jean-Hervé Mvébé, je viens d'un tout petit pays, le Gabon, qui fait à peine la moitié de la France, qui est à la taille du Zimbabwe. Et ce pays, il y a 3 millions d'habitants. La moitié de la population habite dans moins de 10% du territoire. Et beaucoup de gens devraient pouvoir se demander pourquoi est-ce qu'un pays vide, à 80% de forêt, un pays qui a une diversité remarquable, Si vous voulez faire le surf avec des éléphants, vous pouvez venir au Gabon. Les éléphants et les hippopotames chez nous, ils font du surf. Et c'est un pays agréable. Pourquoi donc avoir pris le lead, avoir décidé de participer au Freshwater Challenge? Pourquoi nous engager dans cette aventure? Il y a 60 ans, nous avons commencé à exploiter du manganèse. Et 50 ans plus tard, une rivière de 30 km est morte au Gabon. Tout le monde pouvait voir ça. Sur 30 km, vous pouviez prendre votre voiture et rouler sur ce qui était une rivière. Et cet exemple, cette situation a emmené le Gabon qui a une économie extractive. Nous produisons du pétrole et le pétrole est en train de finir. Et la vision du gouvernement de tout ce qui est reconstitution de l'économie, c'est des mines. On est déjà premier producteur de manganèse. On envisage d'être deuxième ou troisième producteur de fer. On envisage d'être troisième producteur de phosphate. Et donc, c'est partant de tout ça et en regardant le passé et en regardant surtout ce qui se passe dans notre pays, nous avons décidé donc de prendre le lead du Freshwater Challenge. Parce que pour nous, il serait hasardeux que le monde estime que atteindre les 30 plus 30 serait suffisant. Nous avons besoin de restaurer. Nous avons besoin de reconstruire ce que nous sommes en train de dégrader. Parce que si on ne reconstruit pas, ça veut dire que la population mondiale va continuer à augmenter. Ça veut dire que les activités humaines vont continuer de progresser et on va compter sur 30% des ressources du monde. Je n'ai pas besoin de vous faire la situation du monde, tout le monde la connaît. Nous connaissons tous ce qui existe dans le monde. 40% des bassins versants du monde sont dégradés. 37% des rivières du monde ne sont pas endiguées, ont encore un écoulement libre. Et 87% des zones humides sont perdues. La photo qui est sous les 87%, c'est la belle rivière de chez moi, tuée par le manganèse. Et vous avez un exemple de ce qui arrive. Et vous avez 32%. Donc, nous avons 6000 rivières, mais on sait ce qui arrive si on ne fait pas attention et surtout si on ne restaure pas. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, sir. And as you may have noticed, there was no translation on your earphone, but that's like to invite, we have invited somebody that can give a brief summary in English of what has just been said. Thank you very much.
Sure, I will try. To summarize what was a very rich intervention from Jean-Hervé. So he started by saying that he comes from a small country, half of France, the size of Zimbabwe, with only 3 million people. So while a small country with little population pressure would be interested in looking at strengthening and leading efforts on restoration of ecosystems. He said that this is a country that is extremely biodiversity rich, but that some impact on national level really triggered at the realization that government needed to make its part in terms of conserving this huge natural capital, particularly an event around mining in the north that led to this total destruction and loss of a river, 30 kilometers of the river due to mining. Gabon is looking increasingly at extractive activities, to become the first and manganese second producer of iron and phosphate. So this is a concern for the future. And this is why Gabon also decided to join the Freshwater Challenge, to anticipate not only restore, but anticipate on possible degradation. He then mentioned a number of global numbers around the loss of wetlands and rivers. 40% of watersheds in the world are degraded. 87% of wetlands are lost, and only 37% of rivers remain free flowing. So we need a global movement to stop and reverse all that, and Gabon is making a part. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jean Hervier from the government of Gabon, and thanks very much for your kind assistance in English. So now it's my distinct privilege to announce keynote speaker, Her Excellency Maisa Rojas Corredi, Minister of the Environment of Chile. Please.
Thank you. This is very tall. I feel a little bit small, but okay. It's a pleasure to be with you here at this side event and tell you also a little bit about Chile. So I should also start by putting into context my country. So Chile is a very long and narrow country on the Pacific side of South America. And because it is so long, it goes from about 15 degrees south to 55 degrees south. So as you can imagine, the type of geography and climates that we have is very, very diverse. And hence also our freshwater systems are very diverse, from the driest desert in the north, going further south into a Mediterranean type climate where we do a lot of agriculture, to temperate forest in the south where we have the biggest fresh water reserves in the continent as the remaining of our Patagonian ice fields. So very diverse. And in the north, there's a lot of mining industry as well. There are 101 river basins, and as you can imagine, they're also very, very different, very diverse about the amount of water that they have. Much of the water is stored as snow and sometimes as ice in our mountains, and therefore we have winter rain. The water that comes in our rivers comes from the snow melt and hence is there in spring and summer when there's no rain. So it's a very nice equilibrium between the fresh water that is stored in the mountains, and then we have it when there's no water for agriculture in particular. Now, the country has been facing a very long drought since 2010 to this year or last year. There has been very prolonged drought that has dramatically changed this dynamics. And since then, there has been many ways of trying to address this in a more permanent way, because 1 year of drought or 2 years of drought seems like climate variability. You can address it with some urgency measures, but when it becomes 10 years, 15 years, those are not sufficient anymore. And because we know that the climate change projections tell us as well, as in many Mediterranean type of climates, that precipitation will decrease. And hence we have to prepare for that in a different way. We have a climate change law that on the one hand side says that we want to be carbon neutral at the latest by 2050, which is the whole mitigation part of our transformation, but also resilient to the adverse effects of climate change also by 2050 at the latest. So that all resilient part, commitment and objective of our climate change law is where we need to do an important transformation so that the lack of water the change in the time of when we have water can be addressed in a successful way so that we can continue to give fresh water to people, populations, and also for the productive activities that we have that need them. But the problem is not just the amount of water, it is of course also the quality. And let me therefore speak a little bit about the quality of the water, because it's there where our climate change law as well puts in the center nature-based solutions. Because we know that restoration of, for example, forests can help us to provide more water, but also clean water and wetlands as well. As you might know, Chile has very diverse and important type of wetlands. We have a special law to recognize urban wetlands, where they help us with very important ecosystem services as regulating access to water during droughts, but also during flooding. We have a number of norms that regulate the quality and hence the amount, the input of pollution that can go into those rivers. And because, as I said, we have 109 basins, and you cannot do for all of them, but you require to do them basin by basin, and so it is a very important effort. We have concentrated in those basins where the most of the population lives and the most of the productive activities occur. All of this within a strategy of just transition. We have a just transition for water in particular. We have a just transition in general for addressing climate change. Some of the parts has to do with mitigation and what we're doing in our energy transition. But in the case for water, this also has to be thought about and in a framework that makes sure that the ones that are most vulnerable are not left behind and that we prioritize them. And in that sense, we have those norms that allow us to maintain the health of those water system. All of this is part of our NDC. The NDC, our national determined contribution to the Paris Agreement, right? That all of us have to bring to the next COP30 of the Climate Change Convention in Belém later this year. So with these norms, we have today almost 10% of our continental territory under some level of protection. So to make sure that those territories and that water stays and maintains good health. But in some cases, that is not the case, and we have since this year also a decontamination plan for one of the big lakes in the south of Chile, where that norm was surpassed, and hence we had to implement a decontamination plan. But in the next couple of months, we will go from about 10% to about 15% of our territory that will be under regulation. Something that also happened recently is that we have a norm for a bay. This is a bay where there's lots of industrial activities, and hence with that norm we will make sure that the rivers that flow into the bay, but also the industrial activity changes the way so that in the bay where there's lots of fishing activities and small fishing activities can also be maintained. And a last example on how we are addressing this freshwater challenge is, as you might heard, we are very proud that we have our first Ramsar wetland city recognition in Valdivia. That place, Valdivia, has a set of rivers, and these are also very pristine rivers have a high biodiversity, micro-endemic biodiversity, and we have a very, very strict norm there as well, so that we can assure that that quality of water is maintained, and the ecosystem services that the city and the region gets from that, which is fresh water for drinking, but also for other industrial and productive activities such as beer, is maintained. So with this way of thinking that we need to maintain the health of the freshwater ecosystem for all the activities that we depend on. I think we are advancing to make sure that nature stays healthy for people and for nature itself. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency, Minister of Environment of Chile, for sharing with us your experiences as a global leading nation on freshwater ecosystem restoration. Truly inspiring. Thank you very much again. And it's also my honor and privilege to share with you that we have an addition to our program this morning of keynote speakers. We've just been joined by Her Excellency Dr. Evelyn Lovu, the Minister of Environment of Zimbabwe, who was joining us here to share a few words on the leadership of Zimbabwe on freshwater ecosystem restoration. Your Excellency, can I invite you to take the floor?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to appreciate the presence of the team here and all of you. I really appreciate that you are still here, you are working with us to support the Secretary General and Zimbabwe hosting you. I hope you have a good stay. And I hope you are enjoying the fresh water that you are taking in our bottles, and we are trying to do away with the plastics, which is a major polluter of our rivers and our ecosystem, the whole ecosystem. Over the years, we have seen quite a number of our water bodies being polluted, and we are taking major strategy led by His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Zimbabwe, Dr. Int'l Mnangagwa. The programs that will come up as Zimbabwe are key to access to clean water. In 2023, His Excellency, the President, visited my constituency when I was campaigning. And he launched a program for clean water throughout the country. Of course, the clean water strategy was already in place, approved by cabinet. And he then launched a program to make sure that there's access to clean water by every Zimbabwean, leaving no place behind. And this strategy involves the drilling of boreholes in each village to make sure that a very high yielding bore in each village, especially starting with the dryland areas of the southern region of Mashu, Matawele South, Matawele North, and part of Midlands provinces and Manicaland. So those provinces have got less rainfall levels, and hence the need for us to have those boreholes as a mitigation measure. Zimbabwe is a livestock farming country. When you're talking of livelihoods, you're talking of serving the livestock of the villagers. So in that system, we've got an integrated system where we've solarized boreholes. We have drinking troughs there. We have feeding troughs there, so that if the animal is weak, we retain it and we feed it. That animal, and it drinks clean water. We have also noticed also that the women are suffering because they have to do washing. So there are basins there for the women to wash their clothes. It's clean water, because you cannot be clean if you wash your clothes with dirty water. So we prioritize to have a system where women come there, they get their clothes washed, they hang them, we even put a fence for them to, strings for them to dry their clothes. And then we get their clothes, feed their cattle and the goats and the sheep and so forth, and then get their buckets of water to take home. Those villages that are nearer to the bore, we put a pipe, they put a pipeline so that they can have water nearer and not disturb the animals who are drinking. This program has been financed by various interested parties who have been supportive to Zimbabwe's clean water strategy. We recognize that if we and we don't have a water harvesting strategy, it will be difficult for us. So we came up with a water harvesting strategy. And this is the water harvesting strategy where within the schools, we work with development partners and we put tanks and we put systems to harvest the water as the rain falls. In villages, they do the same. This was started by missionaries when I was still a schoolgirl, about 74 years ago. Then we also decided to have waterways, and revive waterways that are diminishing in terms of water levels because of siltation. So we have a program for water desilting dams, to make sure that they hold more water. Once our waterways and our dams have got water, that means we are assured of the underground water. So this is the strategy that we've done. The other strategy that we are now doing is to clean our rivers. We are now cleaning the rivers because, you know, Zimbabwe is a land of gold. A lot of essential minerals that are being dug all over. In Zimbabwe, now there is a gold anywhere, and any other precious minerals and non-precious minerals. So people were digging at the place. So the president, through a cabinet system, put up a committee to make sure that we revive our rivers. So when I was in France, we were talking to the French government officials to try and help us through their 2 billion fund, which they put on oceans, because our rivers should take clean water to the seas, lest we destroy the ecosystem in the seas. So we are trying to come up with projects, proposal to submit to that fund and other financial institutions to make sure that there's the water which is in our rivers. We've got three big rivers. We've got the Zambezi River, which has got other rivers that feed into it. We have the Limpopo River, which has got quite a number, the Sabi River coming from Botswana to feed into the the big river, the Limpopo, to take the water into the seas. We also have a third river, which is in the Eastern Highlands, to take water to the river. So we are making sure that there's the whole ecosystem is clean. Our environmental management agency, it's on the ground to monitor littering. And in towns, we've started to introduce what we call solid waste management system. We've put up a plant so that we can generate electricity from our waste, especially in our area, and carbon credits through that. So that at least we have a clean environment, because within the city, again, rivers come out of that high plateau, going downwards to the seas. Ladies and gentlemen, I can speak and talk the whole day, but really, I think as a member, we will prioritize clean water to our people to make sure that no one and no place is left behind. We have to do that. We are going to look at the strategy on plastics, how plastic can be done away with, even at village level, to make sure that our children, when they're going to school, they've got little flasks to carry their water instead of plastic bottles. I thank you very much.
Thank you so much for sharing your vision and explaining to us how Zimbabwe is one of the leadership countries for restoring freshwater ecosystems, as you put it, eloquently, while leaving no one behind. And I think that's something which is crucial for the entire freshwater challenge, is that water and wetlands are for people and for all people. I think with this, we have come to the end of the first part of this side event. I would like to thank again Her Excellency Minister of Environment from Chile and Her Excellency Minister of Environment from Zimbabwe, Secretary General Mumba, and Mr. Jean Hervier from the government of Gabon. Thank you so much for your contributions and the privilege of having you here in this session. Thank you very much. We have a second part, which is consisting of an interactive panel session. Even though we had to accommodate now a new addition, I think we may be running a little bit over time, but this is also to allow the interaction, and I hope you'll bear with us. I'll make sure that we all on our way not too long. So thanks very much. So we have a distinguished panel here with, again, representatives from countries and organizations who are leading in freshwater ecosystem restoration and the freshwater challenge. So I'd like to call to the stage Levi Pia from the Environmental Health Coordinator from the Environmental Protection Agency of Liberia. Please, sir, be invited to come to the stage. I'd like to invite Tanya Maria de Souza, environmental analyst of the Ministry of Environment and Climate Change of Brazil. Shamsi, head of the Biodiversity section of the Ministry of Climate Change and Environment of the United Arab Emirates. Yes, please. Ashley Steele, Forest Officer of the FAO. Dr. Tazila Banda, Senior Biodiversity Specialist of the Global Environmental Facility. Lea Glatre, DIMF Manager of the Prince Albert II of Monaco Foundation in Monaco. Thank you. And Marianne Krug, expert in political advocacy and networks. Thank you. So we have several questions that we have to the panelists, and I hope you all can have a brief pointed answer, so we also can hear from you all, and then also accommodate some questions from and some interactions with all the people here. The room filled up pretty nicely, which is wonderful to see. So maybe first questions to the representatives of the countries. And I'll read it aloud, you know it, but it's, as the Freshwater Challenge is country-led, how has your country or region been leveraging the Freshwater Challenge to accelerate national priorities on the restoration and protection of freshwater ecosystems? And how are these efforts aligned with your national strategies and other multilateral environmental agreements, such as the CBD, the UNFCCC, and the UNCCD? Can I ask first Mr. Levi Pia from Liberia to share with us your answer? You could be seated, please, if you press the button in the middle, and then it should work.
Thank you so kindly, and thank you for the invitation to participate in this panel. Country like this is abundant freshwater ecosystems. We are home to some of the highest in terms of quantity forests in the region, the organic forests. We have around 43%. And sometimes it seems as though we have everything, but the challenges are there because livelihood activities, especially agriculture and mining. So it is that we are doing to leverage that, to address these challenges. So the forest is hard, it is deep there, but many activities are so hard there. And for many years, these activities have been unregulated. So through the protection agency and using environmental protection and management law, we have begun to put into place some systems to regulate these activities. The mining activities, The agricultural activity, agriculture, Liberia is home to some of the largest rubber plantations in the world. And also agricultural activities ongoing. So recently, I have data. So quite recently, we've been fortunate to have some support from IUCN in helping us to gather some systems that will help us to begin to get some data for our freshwater ecosystem. We're trying to address the challenges because in the absence of data, not much you will do. Climate change too is a challenge. And when I was growing up, it was like really in the country, and about 8 months of the 12 months, now it's around 6 months dry, 6 months rain. During the dry season, we find it difficult now to have electricity because we've not been able to put those things into place. So through IUCN and through some project in the Nile Basin, of course, we also help Sierra Leone and neighboring Guinea. We've been trying to put into place some system, and we just had a workshop recently where we're trying to develop some data and have some system in place that will help us manage our freshwater ecosystem. Thank you so kindly.
Thank you very much. Can I invite Tania Maria de Souza from Government of Brazil?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm great to stay here today, especially because today is the International Mangrove Day, and it's very important for us that work with wetlands. Well, Brazil is a continental a continental country, and have more than 10% of the fresh water in the world, and a rich biodiversity. For which we have a lot of interest in this term, and there together, because there is not possible to create plant, forest, and the art is very important in the idea of the system. I told you it because I work with wetland, and I'm here representing Yara Giacomini, the director of the water politics in the Environment Minister of the Brazil. We are trying together the agendas because we need to talk. The agendas need to work together. Then I will go to the presentation about the freshwater for Brazil. Maybe there? Okay. Freshwater in Brazil was working with actions that restoring restoring 1 billion hectares along the river. Oh my gosh. The river banks, springs, aquifer, reserves, zones, and strategic wetland by 2031 areas. The priority areas was about a study that put in order what the better possibilities to make the restoring. Our policy is that talk together all of the conventions that we are part, and all our national policies. Then we working everything and contributing to the similar target. Our premises were strategically coordination cross-cutting, water governance, optimism and accelerating the implementation of the Rio, Sendai, and the Ramsar Convention together the water. Please. In this map, we have a simulation about the points that classification for the restoration actions, and in the other by biome municipality. Brazil is so big, there is a lot of ecosystems. Then you need to look the specific characteristics of these municipalities. The number is going about is more priority area. Then you can see it's a simulation, we are working more about that. Participation in the dialogue is very important for us. The ministries is working together, but we have a tradition that work with the communities, with the civil society, and we have a lot of national and local forums for talking about our policies in environmental situations. Their roles reflecting analytical and based on the best science, how their respective agendas could be implemented from the water perspective, recognizing and including the water products, the ecosystem and nexus in their planning, and actively participate in workshops to develop the water resources adaptation plan. Lessons learned. Involving local hibernation committees is crucial. They are on the ground. Concepts matter and avoid conflicts. Identifying and understand the interests of all parties involved in the process and the pinpoint areas of convergence of interest, win-win negotiation, and alignment with national legislation and the political moment. Well, thank you. Excuse me for my bad English, I'm nervous. Thank you.
Thank you. That was perfectly clear. And 1 million hectares is quite a bit. There's amazing ambition. Thank you very so much. I'd like to invite now our next country representative. Apologies. Mr. Obaid Al-Shamsi from the UAE. Please, sir.
Thank you and good afternoon all. I don't have a presentation, but I'll ask you to use your imagination. I thank the organizer for inviting me today. It's usually puzzling for some people to talk about freshwater challenge, and then you see the United Arab Emirates sitting on the table. You will usually link UAE with deserts or skyscraper or metropolitan cities. But if you can imagine with me, within this desert and within those mountains, there is a little valley where there is a little stream of water running all year round. People go to visit, and it hosts unique flora and unique fauna around it that is already threatened. It makes sense for UAE to join the Freshwater Challenge because we already have those elements, which is really critical to be there and really needs our conservation. So for the UAE, as one of the first countries to join the from arid regions to join the Freshwater Challenge, reaffirmed that freshwater restoration is not dependent on countries who have riverine ecosystems, but it's a global issue that we all need to work toward conserving them. As I mentioned, we have within the scope of Freshwater Challenge in the UAE, Ramsar sites, oases, different wetlands, as well as wadis, which is seasonal valleys that have water some of the year, and others have water all year round. And those valleys actually recharge our aquifers and support biodiversity and manage flash floods risks. So the freshwater challenge is actually fully incorporated into our NBSAB 2031, and it's support us in support our implementation of our priorities within CBD, UNFCCC, and UNCCD through mainstreaming all these efforts into one main challenge. Also, we have recently done a national assessment and found out that wetland ecosystems in the UAE provides around 10 million USD annually in climate regulation services alone. This will include carbon sequestration, temperature regulation, and flood mitigation. Such valuation help us position a freshwater ecosystem as natural assets and strengthen the case of investment in policy and policy prioritization. Through the freshwater challenge, we engage utilities, municipalities, youth, and different private sector and NGOs into our work nationally to mainstream the work and bridge biodiversity conservation and water security as well. Also, we have utilized sorry to use the word utilize for lack of better words, the Freshwater Challenge through regional and international cooperation. For example, through the UAE-based impact organization, Clean River, which is an NGO hosted in the UAE, works at the nexus of waste and water to clean river systems globally. And we have already started the projects in Philippines and Indonesia, and soon, inshallah, in Brazil. The clean rivers foster circular economy and support freshwater restoration upstream, a model of source to sea thinking within the UAE context. So this is a very brief example from our UAE.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. We've been hearing now from 5 countries how they are incorporating the Freshwater Challenge and how they're working in the national policies to restore freshwater ecosystem. Before we continue, I'd very much like to open the floor for 2 questions about the national policies and representations you just heard. Anyone who would like to have a question to one of the 3 panelists here representing the countries? Yes, sir. You can press, that's right, yes. And please state your name and organization and to whom you're addressing the question.
Yes, thank you very much. My name is Åke Rosenqvist and I represent the Japanese Space Agency, JAXA. And I have a question to Tania Maria de Souza in Brazil. I was wondering, right now in Brazil and in the Amazon, the last number of years, you've seen a drastic decrease in the rainfall, and for the last, I think, 2 years, you've seen historical low waters in the Amazon basin. So how are you responding to that? And also from our perspective, we're interested. We are doing mapping exercises in the Amazon basin where we're looking at inundation patterns in the Amazon basin over a 10-year period, and we'd be very interested to discuss this further with you.
Thank you for your question. I working with Amazon questions, and we have a big country, we have a big forest, and I have a big challenges. That's the point. We have had social problems in Amazonia because we have a very, very nice socio-bio diversity there. And we are working we are working together, the communities there, and looking for options, economic options to stop the bad days by the economic questions there. It's important because we have firing. We have firing. If you have interest, you need to stop that. And the important for it because we have and indigenous have a very personal relationship with the forest, with the rivers, with the diversity there, and can us to help the forest, help the rivers. I'm part of the government. I work in the environment minister, and our colleagues is working in the situations by conservation units. Is a excuse me. We have in Brazil protected areas, protected areas that you use by the communities. And we use a lot this strategy for there. We have thinking about control and the fiscalization and the other things. And you have working about to see all. It's very important the different ways. It's very important. Don't use the usual commerce or way of the life may be different in other spaces. That's the point. We are working it, but there is a lot of other interests that work in the others way, but we are trying that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. As we move on, I'd just like to announce to everybody that in the last part, please stay on until the end because we have the privilege of two people doing the closing remarks and summarizing what they have heard and reflected upon it. And that will be Dr. Int'l Aguilar, the Director General of IUCN, who has been with us and listening the whole time. Looking forward to hearing from you. And also Mr. Lionel Launois from the French government. So please stay with us and we move on to hearing some answers to questions by multilateral organizations and other experts. So first a question to you, Ashley Steele from the FAO. What practical steps are being taken or should be taken to support countries in integrating quantifiable restoration targets and indicators into national biodiversity and climate and wetlands plans, as encouraged by the draft resolution that we'll be seeing and hopefully seen passed?
Thank you. Thank you very much. This has been an exciting and inspiring event already. And clearly one of the primary roles of FAO is in supporting countries to achieve these global ambitions. So let me give you just a couple of examples and how I can highlight each one, how it supports the actions and thinking that's really embedded in this restoration resolution. So the first example I want to bring up is the recently released report called Enabling Consistent Reporting and Monitoring for freshwater inland waters restoration under Target 2 of the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. It's a bit of a long title, and it's published on the FAO website, but it really reflects a very active collaboration across more than 20 co-authors representing more than 15 agencies, UN agencies, NGOs, international organizations, and universities. And one of our main goals was to bring this very large body of knowledge about freshwater inland waters, their ecology and their restoration, to the restoration table, which, as we all know, can be a bit dominated sometimes by terrestrial thinking. And what's, I think, most important, especially related to this resolution about these guidelines, is that we bring a very strong river basin approach. So we consider water and land management at the watershed and watershed scale, as written in this resolution. And the main message is that we define the reportable area for Target 2, the area under restoration, as the area with enhanced outcomes that are expected under Target 2. These are things like enhanced connectivity, enhanced biodiversity, enhanced ecosystem services. And because everything inside a watershed is inexorably linked by the flow of water, it means that the area under restoration can be quite a bit larger than the area of on-the-ground activity or in the water activity. This is clear if we think about a barrier removal, for example. It's a very small on-the-ground activity, but the area under restoration is very large. Another part of our report is to open the door to monitoring and indicators, as discussed in this report. And we're working now on a second report looking at the full restoration cycle. So from assessment across watersheds to prioritization of restoration, and then thinking about monitoring and indicators, how those can be used then to both track effectiveness and begin the second stage of assessment. And I just want to point out that QR codes are available. QR code cards are available on the table to the side for this first report. And we're very open to some feedback about ideas that should be or could be incorporated in this second guidance on the restoration cycle. Another opportunity that FAO is working on is the FIRM, the Framework for Ecosystem Restoration Monitoring. This is a geospatial registry. It's a tool where we can visualize restoration actions. Countries, individuals can report restoration activities into this, and there can serve as a search engine for restoration initiatives and good practices. And under development is a dashboard with analytics. And then what's interesting for freshwater inland waters is that as we were working on this guidance for reporting and trying to bring this watershed approach to the restoration table, they've adapted and incorporated, for example, the hydrosheds data layer so that countries can click which watersheds might be upstream or downstream or connected to any kind of restoration action. And they're ready for our guidance on what kinds of indicators should be included in the FIRM database to support monitoring indicator development specifically for freshwater inland waters restoration. So the last and most obvious thing that FAO can do to support is capacity building. Of course, this can include something like case studies. I believe one of our strongest roles is to bring together the lessons learned, to hear from example, we heard from Brazil, from UAE, what kinds of work is already being done on the ground? What are the lessons learned that's been successful? What hasn't been successful and why? So we'll be sharing this as part of the second report. We're very open to suggestions. We have quite a few, but we're very open to some suggestions. We're working with firms so that they can support capacity building in countries on freshwater restoration, assessment, and prioritization and monitoring. And then that can inform the firm development. And then, of course, on the ground capacity building would be great, but we also have e-learnings that can support that where it's not available. One I want to share particularly is called Resilient Rivers, Watershed-Based Management of Forestry, Fisheries, Forestry, Freshwater, and Inland Fisheries. And that's available currently in English and Spanish. We have QR codes there for this as well. It's coming out in French as soon as we all have time to do that. And it really promotes this idea of who are the river basin communities, as you mentioned, and how can watershed-based management and monitoring plan be developed, including quite a few ideas for very simple indicators. So thank you very much, and I look forward to your feedback.
Thank you very much. A short question to you, Dr. Tazila Banda from the Global Environmental Facility. So how do you think finance can be mobilized more effectively through institutions like Jeff, and perhaps in coordination with philanthropy or with private sector to support the national freshwater ecosystem targets? And if you could give us a brief vision, that would be lovely.
A brief version is a challenge, but I'll try. So the Global Environmental Facility is really one of the multilateral organizations that are supporting the implementation, or at least delivers on the six MAEs, the CBD, UNFCCC, the UNF, the UN, CCD, CCC, CBD. Let's leave it like that for now. And for the JEF, I think one of the areas that we help support countries is through a focal area of international waters, which actually the freshwater falls under that. And up to this point, the JEF has been in existence for 30 plus years. More than 390 million has been raised in grants, which has leveraged about 3.9 billion US dollars gone into conservation of 47 rivers in 13 aquifers. I think countries mentioned about aquifers, and 15 lakes. We also have the LDCF and the SCCF, which are funds for least developed countries, and the special fund. We've seen that investments there that are coming up a lot. Ranking number 1 for the LDC is on water. Ranking number 2 for the SCCF is also water. So water seems to be very important in terms of investment from the JEF side. How to mobilize funds? I think the Freshwater Challenge is one of the areas that is actually ongoing at the moment with WWF. About 5 million US dollars in grants is going to be provided with WWF as implementing agency, and the IUCN as the executing partner, supporting the setup, the indicator metrics, the piloting in 4 countries, as well as creation of better communication on the value of freshwater, involving youth and local communities, indigenous people, in this important effort of restoring. I think their target is about 300,000 kilometers of rivers and about 350 million hectares of wetlands to conserve the freshwater ecosystem. Fundraising, mobilization of funds is a challenge, of course. The areas of opportunity that exist are really around breaking down this whole process of project cycle where countries are stuck in the boom and bust of project cycles and the up and down of financial flows, which leads to the loss of interest and expertise and personnel. So the JEF, therefore, has been collaborating with a lot of partners to develop support to a variety of payment for ecosystem services, which have included a wide range of conservation trusts models and setting up long-term financing through endowment or sinking fund vehicles for stable finance in the future. And we've seen that some of these conservation trust funds have also attracted a wider range of variety of contribution from philanthropies and private sector. Most of them have even progressed to develop innovative financing mechanisms over time, which has multiplied that initial endowment. The JEF has been providing for many years, since the 1990s, seed money to finance conservation trust funds, and has at least 60 conservation trust funds in total of about 320 million US dollars that has gone into this type of endowment. So we remain a partner, we work in partnership. 186 countries are part of that partnership with about 18 implementing agencies. I'm happy to say FAO is one of those agencies, WWF is another. So with all of this, we try to get to the ground and try to support communities and countries in these areas. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Last question is actually to the last 2 panelists. Leah Glatte from the Prince Albert II Monaco Foundation and Marianne Kouble, an expert in political advocacy from MedWed. So the question to you both is, how can partnerships between governments, local communities, scientific institutions, and financial actors be strengthened to deliver more effective and inclusive wetlands restoration? Thank you very much for closing off this panel.
Thank you. So just a few words about what is the Donors Initiative for Mediterranean Freshwater Ecosystems, or DIMFE for short, is. So it's an alliance of donors launched in 2021 to support restoration and conservation of freshwater ecosystems and wetlands in the Mediterranean basin. And so it's hosted by the Prince Albert II of Monaco Foundation and brings together several other foundations. And so we work through a basket fund, which allows us to pool resources, to share a common strategy, and also to support more ambitious projects. And so from our perspective as a donor, one of the key conditions for effective and lasting restoration is strong, meaningful partnership. So this may seem a bit obvious, but it's often underestimated, because I have an example to give you. For example, we supported the project in Malta. So it was a restoration project. And technically, it was well implemented and great. And for each project that we support through DIMFE, we conduct a final field evaluation. And when the expert went on site, he interviewed nearby residents and land managers, so people who were not involved in the project. And their feedback was quite negative, because they felt excluded, they didn't understand the goals of the project, and also saw it as a disruption to their way of life. And so this lack of dialogue threatens the long-term success of the site and of the restoration. And that's why we sometimes wait before funding now. It already happens that we wait almost a year before funding a project, the time to be sure that the organization had secure local backing. And when those partnerships are there, it makes all the difference. So for example, we have a project in Morocco in the Cebu Basin that we are supporting, which bring together local NGOs, communities, basin authorities, local agencies, and this took them years to bring them all over the table. So, but now they have trust, and they can have all the key players, and they can move forward easily to implement that project. So yeah, for us, it's really important to have all of this when we fund a project. And there's another dimension I would like also to mention is alignment. Strong partnership not only depend on who is involved, but also on how well the project fits in national or international strategies. This alignment brings legitimacy, policy support, and long-term sustainability. So just to conclude, I'd like to say that for us, donors also have a role to play. It's our responsibility also to insist that the partnerships are not just mentioned, but really genuinely in place, and to make that a condition and not just a recommendation before funding a project. Thank you.
Thank you, Leah Glatte. Marianne Kouble.
Thank you to the organizer, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm a policy expert for MedWed. So MedWed is the Mediterranean Wetlands Initiative, and it represents 27 countries in the region. And I want to say that the freshwater is really not only availability and quality is a very big concern in the region, and it's a growing concern. And now I think we are to a stage where we cannot consider only conservation, but really have to scale up to restoration. And what is at stake? I think it's very important to say that it's not only a question of biodiversity conservation. It is biodiversity conservation, but you have also a question of survival of millions of people in the region that depend on fresh water for their livelihood. So it's conservation and livelihood, a livelihood challenge. If we don't do anything, it's the whole region which is at stake, the social, political, and economic stability of the region. So we are at Medwet, we are building and providing policy recommendation based on scientific data, but also on granularity. So I've selected a few policy recommendation that we are providing regularly. So first of all, I think it's really urgent that national and local authority prioritize green infrastructures instead of gray infrastructures for the restoration of watershed. And for instance, the restoration of ecological flows instead of gray infrastructures like building new dams. There's no more water in the region. So there's no way, there's no point building new dams when there's no water behind. So it's absolutely imperative to consider nature-based options that in the longer term are much more cost-effective, even if it takes time to, but at the end of the day, at the end of several years of this, it's really productive. And then I think also it's very imperative to consider integrated land use and watershed management plans, because all the ecosystem are interlinked. So you cannot consider fresh water in isolation. And another vital, crucial recommendation is really to set up inclusive governance system at the local level, where all the stakeholders and the water users are around the table, and together they develop and they manage a restoration plan where it sets equitable share of water resources. And I think this is absolutely crucial element, because it develops ownership, local ownership, and it creates a local incentive for the conservation of watershed, water ecosystem. And this is, I think it's a key priority. And to conclude, I think what also we need is long-term financial resources, because restoration is a long-term process, and we need to have at least 20 years of constant funding sources to achieve this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marianne Courouble. A very brief moment again back to Lea Glatre, who would like to make an announcement.
Yes, thank you. So I'm happy to announce that today we are launching our annual call for projects, so to support the restoration and protection of freshwater ecosystems in the Mediterranean basin. For funding in 2026, we have a total budget of about 2 million euros available. So the call is open until 15th of October, and we provide grants ranging from 100K to 500K per project. So if you're interested, or if you know someone who might be, I encourage you to visit our website to check the full guidelines and apply. Our website is dimfe.org. Yeah, thank you.
And thank you so much for also this leadership in providing the necessary finance for restoration that is most needed. Thanks very much. Thank you very much, distinguished panel. I'm afraid I'm not going to open the floor for questions now, but please stick around and people can approach you afterwards. And thank you so much for sharing your examples of the countries and also the perspectives of the multinational and funding perspectives. I think this is what we need all together to get the freshwater challenge going. To close off, I would like to invite Dr. Greta Aguilar to share with us some closing remarks. She's been listening all of the session as Director General from IUCN with a tremendous overview in all conservation efforts, including freshwater ecosystems. Welcome to the stage, Dr. Greta Aguilar.
Wow. I hope you can see me, no? So let me first start by giving a big thanks to the panelists for an inspiring discussion. It has been truly the two panels, a very diverse group of panelists that have been talking about all the aspects, policy, finance, action on the ground, science. So I hope that you have enjoyed these discussions as much as I did. I also want to thank you for staying here at this time, since this session has been extended. So thank you very much to all of you. So we all know that freshwater ecosystems, of course, are not just lines on the map. They are the lifelines of our societies, economies, and cultures. We have heard today what we have heard today shows that change is already happening. And I think that we can say this after hearing these presentations, showing what is happening on the ground and what countries are doing and what some of our donors also are offering. We can say also that countries are stepping up, communities are leading restoration on the ground, and we see partners aligning science, policy, and finance to accelerate action. In IUCN, we are proud to support the Freshwater Challenge and to stand alongside an incredible organizations like, for example, Wetlands International, together with our fellow partners from WWF, the Nature Conservancy, Conservation International, and UNEP to keep fresh water flowing. But let me also say that this is a country-driven effort. And IUCN is here to support, but also to recognize that this is in the hands of the countries and in the hands of people. We heard from the panelists today, this very diverse group of people from around the world, that we need to move forward, we need to cooperate. And this is because we don't have time to lose. The clock is ticking now, and we have to get our act together. We need to move from the words to the action. And what I like about these panelists is that many of the panelists show what they're doing. So we can see that the words are moving directly into concrete results and to actions. As the Minister of Chile said, we need a healthy planet for people and nature. But that healthy planet, we need to achieve it. We need to take action to really protect the planet that we have and to restore the things that we have not been, taking care of. As we move forward, let us remember that restoring and protecting freshwater ecosystems is not only an environmental imperative, but it's also an opportunity to deliver on our climate, biodiversity, and sustainable development goals together. IUCN remains committed to supporting this work by providing the knowledge, the tools, and platforms for collaboration needed to scale restoration effectively. One of our biggest strengths as a union, and many of you here in the room are IUCN members or commission members. I mean, the union is very big. 1,400 members, 18,000 experts. So one of our biggest strengths is the ability to build bridges across countries, organizations, indigenous peoples, and local communities. The Minister of Zimbabwe
talk about the need to work with women, communities, and to put people at the center. Because indeed, if we don't put people at the center, it will be very difficult to achieve, the things that we are talking about here. I don't think that we can achieve a freshwater challenge without putting people at the center. And I was very pleased to see that many of the panelists today mentioned the importance of local communities, indigenous peoples, women, and how we need to engage and to learn from them. We stand ready to work with all of you to accelerate freshwater, wetlands restoration and protection, and importantly, to unlock finance. As I said that communities need to be at the center, I also say we need to put more money on the table. It's a reality. Without financial resources, it will be very, very difficult to achieve what we all aim to achieve. But this is possible. I don't lose hope, and I hope that you also don't lose hope. I think that the money is there, that just need to be channeled to the right places. We also need to keep showcasing science and policy tools for setting and implementing national targets while tracking progress. Together, we can leverage synergies across the MEAs, all these conventions, including through the Convention on Wetlands, to advance the global biodiversity targets, the SDGs, and of course, the Paris Agreement's goals. So together, let us continue to build on the inspiring momentum we have started here to ensure that our rivers, lakes, wetlands can thrive once again. Thank you all for your leadership. Thank you to the panelists. Thank you all for your commitment and your actions on the ground. Let us move forward with hope, with urgency, and with partnership. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And with this compelling call to action by the International Union for Conservation of Nature, we come to the closure of this side event. I must say, I don't know about you, but Freshwater Challenge was launched in spring of 2023. So we are a little bit over 2 years ahead. And if I listen to what we've seen here today, and we deliberately want to show you the diversity and also the growth of the Freshwater Challenge partners and what is happening under this joint initiative, this global initiative, I think it's hopeful. And I think if you see what all of these countries are doing, what the institutions are doing, and what funders are doing, we are aligning and we are on the right path. And I think with that positive note, here on the COP15, I would like to close off by thanking you all for being here and for also staying here and listening to what we had to offer. I thank you on behalf of the co-hosts of the governments of Gabon and France. And last but not least, I would again thank Mr. Raphael Clément for doing the translation at the very intermediate time. Sorry. Thank you very much, and I hope you have a lovely rest of the afternoon and a lovely